everyone. Jax West from Justice with Jax and MAM Gossip and Stephen Avery Project. Going live again on my iPad as opposed to upstairs in my office because my nephew is living with me currently and he's staying in my, well, what I call my office, but it's a spare bedroom. So I have to do this on my iPad. So it's all kinds of different for me to get used to being on here as opposed to on my laptop. So Christopher wanted me to do a live to talk about the documentary that is on Netflix on that hotel, Cecil, however you want to pronounce it. I did watch it. I don't know if y'all watched it. And I'd like to know your thoughts on it. Now, I have not fallen down the Cecil Hotel rabbit hole. I came away from it thinking that the girl's mental issues caused her, for whatever reason, to lower her dosage of her meds, and that made her behavior more erratic. And I do not think there's any, supernatural forces in the hotel or whatever that did anything to her. My only question is, how did she get in that water tank? Did she get in it herself? Or since, they went in pretty in depth into the whole Skid Row thing there and the drugs and everything that's going on in that area. And when they were on the roof of the hotel, there's empty beer cans and cigarette butts. So obviously people hang out there. So, hello, Debbie. So, is it something she did to herself, or is it somebody from Skid Row? So, any of you watching have anything that, your thoughts on the Cecil Hotel? And have you done a rabbit hole, search on this whole thing? I know Christopher is somebody who has done a lot of research. I did go to her Tumblr after I watched it to go read stuff, but then I just got to a point of, what does it, really matter to me? Hello, Maurizio. In that her, for me, her journal or diary, whatever you want to call the whole Tumblr thing, really doesn't have anything to do with her death. So, I don't look at this as we see in the wrongful conviction cases that we cover, that this is something that police or whatever would lie, because what's the point, for what's in it for them to lie about this case. And I totally understood when they were saying there were things that they knew about the case but wasn't released to the public. So I didn't see anything shady in that at all. But I agree, Katrina, it is a sad case. Abby says, hello, I thought the doc left some unanswered questions. Did her family or police have access to her Tumblr or other social media DMs? I'm going to assume, Abby, that that they all had access to her Tumblr after the fact. And Abby, that's something, if I'm going to blame anybody, hello Jordy, for what happened to her, I would blame her parents. Hello Elizabeth. And I know that's not a cool thing to say because they did lose their daughter, but when you know she has this mental illness, and I am not dogging mental illness by any stretch. I myself have mental illness, and lots of people have it. Just many people don't want anybody else to know. They think it's something to be ashamed of, and you don't need to be ashamed of mental illness. There's so many of us that experience mental illness. It's nothing that you've done. You can't control it, you know. But they knew her issues, yet they let her go on this trip alone. Yeah, she's an adult. And when you're on your meds, you feel like you're fine, but you're not fine. And so maybe she was on her full meds when she left on this trip, but she wasn't taking the full dosage. And when you go on those things, you can't change your dosage just like that. It's something that I've worried about because I am on multiple medications for my issues, and I'm going through a divorce right now. My health insurance is through my husband, and so when my divorce is final, I won't have health insurance anymore. So what do? I need these meds to live. But how expensive are they going to be without insurance? And if I have to just go off them cold turkey, what happens to me? So, hello, Bryce. I'm assuming my condition isn't as bad as hers. I'm on medication for anxiety, panic, and depression. I know, hello Kat. I know it was said that her dad doesn't believe she's bipolar, but I think she was. And again, that's not something, that I'm saying as a negative. It is what it is. I'm trying to scroll back to your comment, Abby. The tank could have been a safe place to hide, yeah, if she was in some kind of, psychosis. You don't think rationally at that time, so who knows? I do think when you see the way she's behaving on the elevator, it's because of not taking her meds. So is she seeing things? I don't know. Jordy says Wisconsin has free clinics and can help with that. Nice. Hello, Samantha. So I didn't see that documentary to be, this big mystery, other than, any other unsolved case that you don't know for sure. And I don't think you're ever going to know for sure if she got in that tank herself or if somebody from Skid Row put her in there for whatever reason. It's a tragic, sad story. But if I am to blame anyone, it is her parents. I would not have let her go by herself when she was that dependent on medication. but that's got to be hard too, because, she's an adult, and, she just wants to have this experience, and, her mom wanted to be contacted every day. I firmly feel, though, if she were my child, I would not have let her go by herself. Could her sister have gone with her? I don't know. But she needed somebody with her. But I'm not blaming her parents. I'm saying if I was to find somebody at fault, if you wanted to blame somebody, I would say the parents shouldn't have let her go on this trip by herself. I did find it interesting that this was done by Joe Berlinger, who did the West Memphis 3. If you haven't seen those, what are they called? What are the ones called on HBO? Paradise Lost. If you have not seen Paradise Lost, and there are 3 parts, I highly advise it. And then it was also Ron Howard produced it. So I thought it was done very well. It was interesting to watch. I'm just not somebody who thinks, like that this is an American Horror Story, and the hotel is evil and did this to her. And I think it's just being made into like an I don't know if Old Wives' Tale is even what you would say, but so like even when they were talking about the Night Stalker, and one person was stating it like fact that he had been there, but then somebody else was saying he hadn't been there. So yeah, so I just think it becomes like urban legend or whatever, and that things get twisted to make it spookier. When you're gonna be on Skid Row, in that area with, all these people that are down on their luck or mentally ill or recently out of prison with nowhere to go, and drugs and alcohol are rampant, you're going to have deaths. You're going to have people killing themselves. So, what were they saying? You could get a room for like $1, $2 a night. Yeah, so I just think it is the clientele, not that there's some evil forces or anything like that. I think this is a tragic story of a young girl with mental illness. And either she did it to herself or somebody else with mental illness, drug addiction, what have it, did something to her. It's really sad. And so I guess the moral to that story should be mental illness is nothing to be ashamed of. And getting help for mental illness is nothing to be ashamed of. I'm somebody who suffered from panic attacks. I've had them. I started having panic attacks after my son was born. So I always attributed it to like having hormonal changes in my body from giving birth. So I refused help for 20 years. And then I got help and life got a lot better. Jessica's asking, what do you think about the fax having her name spelled backwards? I think there were mistakes that when you are trying to make this into this big mystery, that it becomes like red herrings. Katrina says it's just a freaky hotel, I think. I mean, good for the hotel if it's now going to, from this documentary now, is it open? Well, I know we're in COVID, but is it open again? And because I'd go stay there, even though I don't believe in any of that stuff. But I'd go check it out. You know, it would be interesting. So, you know, and it's old, and you know, so that just goes along with the creepiness. Was American Horror Story based on that hotel, or was it the one here in Chicago? I can't remember now. But okay, Jordy says, I feel like the hotel manager was very raw and honest, and even when she said she felt guilty for not calling for help on her behavior, but she also said this was normal for that area due to what you previously said on Skid Row. Yeah, I agree. I know people were making it out like that hotel manager was lying or covering things up. I don't think so. I don't know if the water tanks varied the levels. I don't know. Yes, Jessica, it's on Netflix. Okay, and Kat says the American Horror Story was based on the hotel in Chicago, which I've never been to. And I'm in a Chicago suburb. Should check that one out, huh? What's that one? HH something or another or something? I can't remember. But if you have not seen this Hotel Cecil thing, it is on Netflix. It's only a couple episodes. So, what is it, 3? I don't remember now. So it's not like you have to put a whole lot of time in, you know, into watching it. H.H. Holmes, thank you, Kat. And it just came out a couple weeks ago. So I do recommend seeing it. Bryce says, my mom is diagnosed schizophrenic and for years was diagnosed as bipolar. Any mental illness is hard to treat because it's not a visible thing. Please get help if you suspect yourself or someone else to be suffering from a mental illness. Here, here. And again, nothing to be ashamed of. You've done nothing wrong. Jordy says, the doc said the water levels did vary, okay, and possibly why she could not get out of many. Oh, yes, okay, I remember that part, Jordy, that, you know, as people use the water level in the tank would go down. So while you could get into it when it was high, then if somebody's using water, it would go down, and then she would not be able to get out. And that one couple from the UK or whatever that had stayed there at the time, and they talk about the brown water, and they still drank it. You know, now I never would have thought, oh, this water is brown because there's a body in a water tank. I never would have thought that. But seeing brown water come out of a tap, I'm not drinking that. You know, and this also wasn't like the 1970s that they did it. It's like, and there was that convenience store or liquor store or whatever it was right by the hotel. I'd go buy a bottle of water. I'm not drinking brown water out of a tap in some old creepy hotel. That's disgusting. I'm not bathing in it either. Actually, when you're doing something on the cheap, and I've never been to California, but I know people have told me it's really, you know, things are really expensive there. So maybe you don't have any other choice. But I had gone to Wisconsin for something, and the Airbnb I was in, I was up on a 3rd floor of this house. And it was really hot, and they had no working air conditioning. And I'm like, I'm out of here. And and then I was looking for someplace cheap to stay, and then went to this hotel, and I kid you not, there were drug deals and prostitution going on in this hotel, and I'm like, that's it, I'm driving home. You know, because I was only like 2 hours from my house. So instead of staying at a hotel for the night for an event that was happening in Wisconsin the next day, I just drove home and then drove back the next day. So I'm definitely, you know, and I'm not like a, you know, pinkies out, Grey Poupon, you know, I have to have the best hotel stay. But I'm not going to stay in a hotel, that I think I'm just staying in a hotel that's brown water that I'm going to brush my teeth with it and drink it and shower with it. Now, when you're going to something that's supposed to be spooky and you think it, you know, there's ghosts or whatever and the water is brown, that goes with that experience. I still wouldn't use any of it, though. Oh, it's 4 episodes. Thank you, Samantha. Kat says, I certainly would have reported the brown water to a hotel employee without hesitation or delay without ever drinking it. Yeah, that was so gross. And they're like, oh, it tasted really bad. Ugh, no, I'm not drinking that. Never, never. So, it's really sad. But I just think it was a tragic accident. Well, no, I shouldn't say that. I don't think of it as just a tragic accident because I don't know if it was an accident or a murder. You know, because I don't know if she did it to herself in, you know, some, you know, psychotic state, or if somebody from Skid Row who was staying in those rooms did it. But yeah, the hotel manager, the girls that she had been sharing a room with, you know, multiple people talked about her erratic behavior. So just really, really sad. So yeah, definitely check it out. And, you know, and if you haven't seen Paradise Lost, check that out too. That's really well done. And now with the third Paradise Lost, you have the story fully to completion. Harriet says, hey Jax, get yourself walking, and more walking for your mental health. Exercise is a savior. Harriet, I keep saying, you know, I have during this year pandemic, even though I am medicated for my depression, my depression and panic has been rearing its ugly head, and I have not done any kind of exercise, and I am now pretty overweight, and I really need to exercise. You're absolutely right, but it's hard to make myself do it. And then she says, the only thing that concerned me is the fact that she was found naked. Yeah. I mean, and it's not like, even though she was in water, that the clothes could have just fallen off her at some point in the water. So, you know, but she could have gotten naked in a manic state, or, you know, a horrible person could have done it to her. Don't know. Kat says, my thing is, how did she get onto the roof of the hotel in the first place if the door to the roof is alarmed and the only other way is up the fire escape? Well, and that's what they said, Kat. Everybody's assuming she went up the fire escape, and it's clear people do it because they said there were empty beer bottles or cans or whatever and cigarette butts up there. So somebody's hanging out up there. And I also did not feel that the maintenance guy would lie about anything. That how he discovered her, or, you know, so I found him very believable. Samantha says, I saw Damien Eccles in New Zealand with the premiere of West of Memphis, a highlight of my life. Oh, yeah, I really liked how Peter Jackson and his partner, I can't remember her name, everything that they did for Damien, and you know that they did once he was free, you know, brought him to New Zealand and everything. That's and they paid for all the testing for the case. So Peter Jackson and I can't remember what his partner's name is, because I believe it was Peter Jackson's partner that was first interested in the story and got Peter Jackson involved. Bryce says, let's start some kind of group for those who want to start exercising, lose weight, diet. We can hold each other accountable. I actually have one, Bryce. I can't remember what it's called. But I do have one that I started a couple years ago and then haven't done anything with, obviously. I'll find it, Bryce, and I can send you an invite to it. Fran, there you go, Samantha, yeah. And that's what I like to see from people who are rich and famous. It's not active, but it's not active, Bryce, yeah. When you have all this money and you do something good with it. So, I mean, yeah, they made a movie on Damien's case, but that's far after the years that the two of them put in to defending Damien. And, you know, that testing is not cheap. You know? And so that's great. Now, I prefer Paradise Lost, though, to West of Memphis. And then there was another one made. Or was West of Memphis... One's with Reese Witherspoon that was made on the case. Which one's that? And I don't think I like that one. Yeah. Anybody else have anything to say on Hotel Cecil? If not, I'm going to move on to something else I wanted to talk about today. I guess I'll just start talking about it. And if somebody else has anything they want to add to the Hotel Cecil stuff, we'll dive back into that. But somebody sent me this, and don't know if it's true or not. Hello, Carol Ann. But I was told that Barb Taddock allegedly reached out to the Lifetime Network about doing a reality show on Brendan's case, on Brendan Dassey's case. Now, I don't know what the pitch is, but oh my God. I mean, people would watch it like a train wreck. The devil's not. Thank you, Samantha. I think that's well, okay, is it a horrible idea? It's horrible for the family who are covering up the real murderers to keep Stephen and Brendan in prison. So it's a dumb move on their part. For the rest of us, maybe something would come out, you know, that they'll screw up to prove that Bobby and Scott, in my opinion, are the real killers. Hey, Tamara. Just yikes. And it's so funny how the family will claim they want their privacy or get so mad that somebody said such and such, and then you're going to put yourself out to be on a reality show. Because then you deserve whatever criticism you get. You know, it's a thing that I have always been pretty strong on. You know, back in the day, I used to have a reality TV website. And so I used to write articles on all the different reality shows. I used to interview the people as they would get kicked off of the shows like Big Brother and Survivor and Amazing Race. And the way that works is typically an eviction show is a Thursday night. And so then on Fridays, they would be in New York with the publicist. And so then they would have these block of interviews throughout the day from the New York office. So you would get assigned a time slot, and then you would get 15 minutes to talk to them. So I've been around reality TV for a long, long time. And, you know, and so people would say they'd get upset that I'm on this reality show, but I'm a person, and how dare these people say this or that about me? But I'm like, but you went on TV. So you're not just a private person. And so you're going on TV for attention. Well, you can't expect to only get positive attention. Bad attention comes with the good. So you reap what you sow, as they say on Big Brother. I guess it will also depend on how it would end up being edited, because, you know, they say reality TV, but stuff is edited. So it's depending on what show you watch. So like Big Brother is one that I was very, very involved in. And I still watch, but I'm, you know, I don't cover it or anything now. But Big Brother is one where it is on TV X amount of days a week. But then there's the live feeds where you can watch what is happening in the house 24/7. Now, there are times that the show will block what you're seeing. But for the most part, you're seeing things. And so that show is the one where you can see how obvious it is, because when you watch the TV show, they edit it to look such a way that that's not really what happened, because we now watched in the feeds what really happened. And that would be a fight that I would get into when I would interview people. One guy, I really didn't like him. And he said some horrible, horrible things when he was on the show. And I called him out on it when I interviewed him. And they like to cry editing. No, TV show is edited. I'm watching the feeds. I watched you say it. I watched the context. You said it. You did it. So what would be done to the Avery family? I don't know. You know, there's so many good, you know, there's good reality shows and bad reality shows. I have been somebody who, now I watched them, the Paula Abdul, Whitney Houston, Anna Nicole Smith, you know, all had reality shows. I watched them. They were train wrecks, and I felt horrible for them because they shouldn't have been on those shows. They were made laughing stocks to show them, just showing them. So would that kind of reality show be made about the Avery clan? Would it go into the wacky fans of the family and their, you know, weird attachment? And I mean, it's really creepy. So I don't know. You know, I guess it would also depend on when you see who's producing it, who's making it, and if you can tell if it's going to be a train wreck, or that family has so much to hide that I don't think it's a good idea. But y'all know that I have no love for that family, so bring it on. Let me scroll back to see what I missed while I was talking. Several people saying it's about money. Jessica says, do Barb and Steve regularly contact each other these days? I don't believe so. They've never had regular contact. Yeah. Um, yeah, Jordy. I'd be curious to know what Kathleen would think about it. Because it could help her case because it's Bobby and Scott. So maybe it would, help in that aspect. Audrey says, sounds like trying to get money flowing back in. Don't need to watch Barb crying for hours. Yeah. And let me put this out again. This is just something that was sent to me. I don't know if it's true or not. And the person who sent it to me doesn't know if it's true or not. I think it was something that was being discussed on Twitter. So, so this discussion could be all for nothing. And I'm sure I'm going to get slammed for it too. And something will be like, this was never happening and Jax made this up. I'm not making anything up. This is something that somebody told me was going on in Twitter, and I'm commenting on it. Don't know if it's fact or fiction. Bryce says, I don't want to watch them hunt and go to Nickelback concerts. I'll pass. Barb has visited Steve before. She's somebody who actually had something to do with Steven prior to Making a Murderer. It was just Barb and his parents. Once Making a Murderer came out, that's when the rest of the Avery family came on board to support Steven so they could make money and get attention. Kat says, the wacky fans and their blind belief that Bobby and Scott have done no wrong. Yeah. Yeah. Jordy says, same. Oh my God, to hear her speak or at a conference would be amazing. And then Jordy says, I could see it being a possibility. I mean, Making a Murderer topics are money making. I mean, look at this group, for example. People are invested in his innocence. Oh yeah, I make tons of money. Hi, lawyers who keep claiming that I make money off of this. Well, we've had several people try and write books, and other than people who actually were a part of the case at some part, I don't think any of the books have done very much. But no, I know you don't, Jordy. That you're not saying about me. It just reminds me of the people that keep accusing me like I'm making money off of all this stuff. That I think is hysterical. So no, yeah, I know you weren't saying that at all. It just reminds me of that, and it's funny. But people are always clamoring for Making a Murderer stuff. Avery Project, and thank you, Christopher, because Christopher is the one that is handling everything for all the groups, because I'm pretty absent, where we get new people every day who watch Making a Murderer. And so they message Stephen Avery Project every day. And a lot of them start out with, hi Steve, how you doing? They're assuming when they message Stephen Avery Project, they're talking to Stephen Avery, having no clue that he's in prison. He doesn't have internet. He doesn't have access to stuff like that. So, and so it's new people every day from around the world. Stephen's case is international. So people are always clamoring for stuff on the case. Where, we get every day, what is happening with the case? Where is it now? That's our, hi Stephen, how are you? Where's the case now? How are his parents? That's what we get the most. Over and over every day. So, and it's hard for people because when they're new to the case and just watch Making Murder, they want stuff happening now, And they don't realize that, we go months and months without anything going on in this case. There's nothing to discuss. There's nothing to update. We can keep beating the same horse over and over again. But there's nothing new to talk about on the case. But as soon as there is something, we absolutely will, and if Stephen gets, hey Debbie, if Stephen gets an evidentiary hearing or a new trial and people are allowed to be in the courtroom, I will go. And then I will do lives and tell y'all what happens. Just like I did when Brendan's case went to the 7th Circuit. I attended those hearings. So, so we always will, as soon as something happens, we'll discuss it. But in the meantime, we can talk about other cases. But that's why we're doing, so this one we started out on talking about the Hotel Cecil. Sure, Bryce. No, but no shotguns. You can ride with me, but don't bring a shotgun. People on Stephen Avery Project, they only want to hear about Stephen's case. They don't want to hear about any other case. So over here on Justice with Jax, we can talk about any case. Yes, Debbie, I know of the Darlene Roudier case, but I haven't looked into that in years. I always believed she actually did it, that it was a mental illness. I have to watch it again. Debbie, where are you watching it? Is there something new on the case? Does anybody know if there's something new to watch on the Darlene Roudier case somewhere? All right, McFadden, catch up later. Carol Ann says, I hope it's televised so we can all see it even outside the U.S. Well, when Kathleen Zellner was in court for Melissa Kaluzinski's case here in Illinois, they did film it. And it was the first time that an Illinois court let it be recorded like that. But they didn't allow a whole bunch of cameras in the courtroom, so it was only one camera and all the press outlets had to use it. And so if you go to Kathleen Zellner's website, which, by the way, I just saw on the news yesterday, because Kathleen Zellner lives, because I live in a town over from her office, and her home is a town over from that. And so it actually made the news. I think it was the Chicago Tribune it was on yesterday, that she just sold her house for almost $2 million. That made the news here in Illinois. So you can go on Kathleen Zellner's website, though, and you can watch that hearing, the whole thing. So, and I would think you'd be able to watch it anywhere in the world. I will, and I'm sure if Stephen were to get an evidentiary hearing, a new trial, whatever, I'm sure the Making a Murderer documentarians will be there. Now, obviously, they would edit it and you wouldn't be able to see it in its entirety. But maybe Kathleen would be able to do something like she did in Melissa's case and get it so then it would be up on her website for people to see. That would be cool. Because I do find it interesting to watch the entire thing. Not just the nuggets that get pulled out. Debbie says it's old. Okay. I remember that case though when it happened, but it's been forever. So, since I mentioned Melissa, we're going on a year now since my last visit with Melissa Kaluzinski due to COVID. but I email with her all the time. I just read an email from her right before going live. Good night, Carol Ann. And Melissa's doing as well as can be expected, being in prison for something you didn't do during a pandemic. And hopefully, I think she's supposed to finally get the first COVID shot, her first one next week. So it'll be really nice to get the inmates all vaccinated, because they have had the constant circles of people, inmates getting COVID there. So it'd be nice that, she's safe. And then maybe once the prison is fully vaccinated, they can start visits again. And I don't know what the rules would be on that, if a visitor would have to be vaccinated in order to go on a visit. I do know that because I was just talking to Melissa's dad the other day, and Melissa's mom is getting her first shot soon through work, and that Paul was, because it's really like winning the lottery, so many people trying to find these shots. So hopefully by the time that the prison allows visits again, her parents will be vaccinated and there'll be no issues with that, and they'll be able to visit. I have signed up to get my shot, but I'm not a high priority. I guess I'm technically not old. But I'm old. But I'm not that old, I guess. And all my conditions are not life-threatening, I guess. So I have signed up. I'm not looking to cheat the system. I'll wait till it's my turn. But hopefully I'll be able to get vaccinated before they open up visits again, because I feel so horrible for all the inmates that have not been able to see anybody in a year. That's what I was just talking to Paul about, is that I last visited Melissa March of last year. And on my last visit, it was right when the COVID lockdown, it was being talked about that it was going to start. Because when I went to the prison, they made me sign this paper that I did not have a fever, I had not been exposed to COVID and all that kind of stuff. And Paul said he last visited Melissa January of last year, so it has been a full year since he's been able to see his daughter. It is free here yet. Vaccine is free here. So, but it's just a matter of being able to get it. Everybody's supposed to be waiting their turn, and you have to make the appointment, and they book up so fast. So now there's like advocates that will help you get an appointment, because I guess in a lot of places it's like the appointments open up as of midnight, and since the elderly are the ones that are really looking to vaccinate right now, they're not up at that time. And, so it opens up online at midnight and then it's gone within 5 minutes, all the appointments. And so there's people now that are advocating for the elderly and making appointments for them. And people are driving far for them, so it's not like they're even able to do it in their own county. A friend of mine drove 2 hours the other day to go get her shot. So, and she had been trying to be patient because she's like, she doesn't have really any pre-existing conditions. All she is old, but she's a widow and her kids all live out of state, And she's tired of being cooped up at home because she's trying to be very good and stay home. So she, wants some freedom. Debbie says, I am considered high risk for COVID due to my diabetes and hopefully will get vaccinated soon. I stay in my house pretty much, so that don't help with my severe depression and anxiety. I hear you, Debbie. I mean, I do go, I go to the store. But yeah, I'm not out and about or anything either. And, I am so used to in my whole activist life, constantly being on the go. And so it's been really bizarre now to just be here in my house. And I have a gym in my house. That door at the top of the stairs there that you can see stuff hanging on the door, that's my gym. Where I've got a treadmill, an elliptical, a full weight bench, a punching bag, all that. But I have no desire to do it. And I'm just getting bigger and bigger. Kat, the outside world is foreign to me now, right? Harriet says, what a bear. Oh, nightmare, probably. We have a system where they contact you and you book an appointment, age depending and vulnerability. Yeah, so we have a thing here, Harriet. You sign up online and they are supposed to reach out to you. But you have so many people at one time wanting to do it, it's clogging everything up. And, people are becoming frantic. Where I'm just going, all right, I signed up and I'm just waiting my turn. I don't want to cheat it. And I kind of I didn't argue with someone the other day, but they were saying something about prisoners should be the absolute last people to get the shot. And I'm like, no. And I wouldn't say this just because of, the inmates that I know. They get it by no fault of their own. They're locked away. They're not coming and going. It's the people who work there are bringing it into them. And it keeps, so it's killing these people. And just because they're prisoners, they're still people. So I absolutely think the prisoners should be on the top of the list and people who work in a prison. I believe the teachers should be on the top of the list because I follow science, and all of science is saying that it is safe for kids to be in school. So I do believe the kids should now be in school. I do understand the mental anguish it causes the kids to be at home. I also know of people who should be homeschooling their kids during this time and they're not, that they don't want to, being lazy or whatever. So the kids, it's in the kids' best interest to go to school, and the science is saying that it is okay for them to be in school, but it's all the adults that work at schools are still going to be in danger. The kids are safe, but the adults are not. So I absolutely think if they want to open the schools, everybody who works in a school should be vaccinated first. Kat says it's like the toilet paper crisis all over again, only this time it's over a vaccine. Exactly. Yeah. So, I don't know if y'all see it on your feeds, but my feeds have, people that are desperate to find the vaccine, So I'm lucky in that, knock on wood, that, I'm not a high risk, and I'll just wait it out. What else? We got 5 minutes left to go here in this discussion. What else did I want to talk about? There's something else I wanted to mention. I don't recall. Does anybody else have anything they want to discuss? Debbie says, yeah. So Debbie Stover and I went to junior high and high school together. I was so skinny. See, I was the opposite, where I got made fun of for being so skinny. I was skin and bones straight up and down, and it wasn't until giving birth that then my metabolism changed and I gained weight, because it wasn't like when I was young that I didn't eat or whatever. I ate whatever I wanted, as much as I wanted. Sky's the limit. Now, I mean, look at that. Oh, Jessica, my kids are dyslexic and I'm a stay-at-home mom. I got a real appreciation for the teachers. Yeah. Now, my son is an adult. And this isn't me being a mom. This is the truth. My son is way smarter than I could ever be. So like when my son was in first grade and stuff, I volunteered at a school, and I volunteered in the learning center, and you're there to help the kids on the computers. Yeah, I would end up having to ask my son, my 6-year-old son, because, so if my son back then, we had gone through a pandemic and there had to be homeschooling, he would be teaching me. So I don't think I would have any issues with the homeschooling, because my son is so super smart. But I do feel for the parents, of how difficult that could be. And so like one of my sisters has 3 kids, one in college, one in high school, one in grade school. So, and actually her oldest that's in college is the one that's living with me. And so he does a lot. Most of his schooling right now seems to be homeschool, Zoom school, that, so he's here all the time. And now today he's gone. So, I don't know if it was actually school today or what, but, yeah, so I can't imagine having 3 kids, all those different levels, all needing to be homeschooled. That's a lot. And I know with my nephew, and my nephew is super, super smart. And, so like if my nephew was doing some work or whatever or needed help with, I'm not going to even know what he's talking about. Way out of my league. So, or, I always hear about this new math that kids, and I suck at old math. So I would be the worst. Jordy says, I've been meaning to ask about the zipper posting. Oh God. All over those documents, etc. Do you know this person? And also, what are your thoughts on all her posts? If you're talking about Corey Zipper, that's a dude, I believe. And it's not all there. So, I've actually banned him from Stephen Avery Project and Gossip. He posts stuff that is unsubstantiated, and he is not related to the zippers of the case, and he doesn't pretend to be, as far as I know. But he looks to be somebody who is trying to use this case for his own personal whatever. I know he has said, that he's got his own case, and then he tries, and somebody sent me a screenshot of something he just posted the other day, and he posted it like he was saying it, but then said no, he was just sharing the post that somebody else had said. And so it was like somebody claiming that they are the ones that set Steven up or some weird thing. And then I saw that it was somebody, I was sent the screenshots of then Barb came out swinging at Corey, and then Corey kissed her ass. But Corey was still talking shit about Scott and Bobby. And I don't know why people don't get that Barb is always going to 100% defend Scott and Bobby. So you can't do both. You can't kiss her ass and try and be her buddy and talk shit about Scott and Bobby. She's going to defend those boys. So Kat is waiting for the vaccine. Many more need it more than, yeah. Jessica, don't get me started on math. Try doing long division. My daughter was like, what the fuck is that? Bryce, he's the killer. Yeah, Jordy. So I wouldn't pay him any attention. I don't know if Corey is, because I don't know his deal. Let's just, yeah. I guess I'm just going to leave it at that. But I don't believe anything he says. So I guess you could watch his posts like, you know, a train wreck. I don't know. So, and I know somebody has sent to me before where he had said that he talks to Steven on the phone, that Sandra set that up for him to talk to Steven, which could be true, you know, because Sandra wants people to be her friend, and so yeah, so he could talk to Steven on the phone, but I don't know. It's the whole thing. This is a that I was discussing with people about something that's happening in my local area politics wise, is the little boy who cried wolf. So when you've been shown to lie multiple times, then everything you say is suspect. So does he talk to Steven? He could, but you just can't believe anything he says. Hello, Mary. Yeah, he posts the same thing over and over again. And we eventually kicked him out of all the groups because it just got to be too much. It's the same things over and over again. And then he also teamed up with the pedophile guy. Jessica. Jinx, Jessica, we're on the same wavelength there. So then he was trying to use our groups to promote the pedophile, and it's just no, you know, there's a million groups, you know, you don't have to be in ours, you know, so peddle your wares to those groups who are okay with being friends with murderers and pedophiles. We're just not going to do that here. We also had recently Brad Dassey. Brad Dassey has been a never-ending circus for us over the years, where he'll be in our groups and leave, and in the groups and leave. Then there was a time he asked me to make him an admin. No. And so he just requested to come back into one of the groups, and one of the moderators approved it, and then right away he's trying to sell something, you know, about his songs or whatever the crap it is he does. We're not here for these people to make money off these cases or attention. So I believe he was muted. I don't recall what the moderators were asking me how to handle it, and I'm like, you guys just do whatever you think is best on that. It's such a tiring circle that we do, and I won't forget how we had our rally last year, and he contacted the prison acting like he was part of our rally and got it so the prison was literally waiting for us to get there that day and to tell us we can't be there. So yeah, and I find it pathetic to his kissing Barb's ass. Jordy says, I'm still scared that Ryan Hills, and that's not a typo because he changed. Is it just his name changed on Facebook to Hills instead of Hilgas? Or is that his actual name now? But working nurse in your area, I'd be like, nope, yeah, no, because I do think Ryan Hilgas has something to do with this case. I don't think he's the killer, because I do think that's Bobby Dassey. But I do think he was part of planting the vehicle there and doctoring the voicemail and the having her day planner, so he's involved. Audrey is glad he's gone because yeah, it's good riddance. Mallory is begging me to go outside. Oh, of course, now when I put the computer down, the iPad down that way, she ducks her head out. So I guess I should end this so I can let the dogs out. And we have been on for over an hour. Yeah, right. Well, why does Scott need to leave the state? Nothing's happening to them. They're all living the good life. Bought a house that's got some land. He doesn't work very often. Is he still, is he still like a thing that Scott would do is he would, go on workers' compensation, get hurt so he didn't have to work. Yeah, so, they're living the good life right now. They've got all these fans who send them presents and money, gift cards, Red Lobster. So he's got no need to run at this time. Because even people who claim I'm wearing vagina bat, Audrey. Even people who claim to worship Kathleen Zellner, family says Scott and Bobby are innocent, so we're going to listen to that, even though Kathleen has shown you plenty to show that Scott and Bobby are liars. Oh, okay, wait, before I go, did I talk about this in gossip? Sexy girlfriend is on. Hello, Miley. Because I did a live in gossip last week. Was this brought up at that time? I don't know. I think this was part of the fight with the argument that was Barb and Zipper. And the thing that was mentioned was the fire. I think I did talk about this in gossip, but I'll talk about it here too, right now. Now, back when I was friends with Barb and Scott and a moderator for the Barb fan group, we did the Facebook Live that was Barb, Scott, and Pete Dassey that I moderated and Jeff filmed. And so I asked Scott about the fire. And that the fire were the different sizes. And how big was the fire? And he told me it wasn't that big. And it's because the police, or whoever it was, I'm going to assume Fassbender and Wiegert because they're the ones that manipulated everybody's testimony. They tried to manipulate everybody. Okay? They tried to manipulate all the Dassey boys. Brendan was the only one that was susceptible to it. They did the same thing to Scott. They wanted that fire to be big. So this is a thing that I will defend Scott on, is that Scott said to me the fire wasn't that big, but they kept on him wanting him to say the fire was bigger. They needed it for whatever reason, that it was this big fire. Bye, Miley. So Scott was manipulated by the police to say that. Now, that doesn't take away from, I think Scott had something to do with this. I do not think Scott is the killer. I think he helped Bobby after the fact. That's what the evidence points to for me. But I do not think Scott saying the fire were these different sizes is anything that points to his guilt, because it was just Fassbender Wiegert manipulation, like they did to Brendan, like they did to everybody. They had their narrative and they needed people to say it. So now whether or not that's what went down, I don't know. But that is my impression from my time with Scott. It might have been discussed, Bryce. But you also have to remember too, yeah, Mary, 10 feet tall. When I went to the salvage yard and went to where the fire pit is, now the way the picture was taken by Wisconsin, it makes it look like the fire is a decent amount away from the garage. It's really not. And that garage is made of clapboard, you know, this cheapo wood. And then there's this huge propane tank on another side of it. If you had a fire 10 feet tall as the garage, that garage is going up. There's no fire 10 feet tall. And Scott had no clue. He didn't even know Barb's kids. You know, so when he even testified, he doesn't know. The only boy that he had anything to do with was Bobby, because they belonged to the same hunting club. You know, you have to remember that Barb's husband at the time, Tom Yonda, is Scott Toddock's cousin. And Barb and Scott were having an affair. So it's not like they were having these outings with her kids. He didn't know them. You know, they did things at Scott's, not with her kids. She would abandon her kids, leave her kids while she went and spent the night at Scott's trailer. Right, the propane tank would go up as well. It just, there was no fire 10 feet tall, but they want it to be this big roaring fire because in order to burn a body, it has to be X amount of degrees. So they think by saying that this fire is that tall, that points to, oh, he was burning this body that was able to burn away to nothing, that then when they find these alleged bones, they can't even be bothered to take pictures of. Because, you know, Stephen's dog Bear was scary. Who was on a chain. So ridiculous. So, yeah. See, I call things as I see them. And it doesn't matter if I like the person or not. Not a fan of Scott Toddock, but I'll defend him on the fire thing. because that was Manitowoc manipulation, wanting somebody to say the fire was big. So there you have it. All right, I'm going to get off here because my dogs are really going crazy now, wanting me to let them out. And we'll probably do another live next week. So if you have a particular case or show you would like me to discuss, you can message the page or message Christopher and let us know what you want us to talk about next. So, see y'all. Bye-bye now. Investigate.